The Airbus A380 is famous for one thing: it is enormous. But enormous is the least interesting fact about it, because almost nothing on this aircraft could be built the normal way. Its wings forced airports to redesign their gates. Its weight needed a landing gear with more wheels than most trucks on the road. Its own parts were too big for the roads meant to carry them. And buried inside its skin are hundreds of kilometers of wiring, holding together a machine so complex that a single design mismatch once brought the entire production line to a halt. So here's the real question. Not how big is the A380, but what had to change before an aircraft this large could fly like a normal airliner? Because size was never the hard part. Making that size work, that was the problem. Nobody could just scale up from a smaller plane. Fact 1. A true full-length double deck. Starting with the obvious, the A380 has 2 decks, but not the way older jumbo jets did it. Earlier aircraft gave you a small upper hump, a lounge, a handful of extra rows. The A380 runs 2 complete decks along almost the full fuselage, connected by internal staircases wide enough to feel like separate aircraft stacked on top of each other. That sounds like a simple win. More floor, more seats. It isn't. A second deck doesn't just add space, it duplicates almost every system the aircraft depends on. Pressurization now has to condition 2 full cabins evenly, without one running colder or thinner than the other. Every extra row means extra oxygen lines and smoke detectors. Evacuation planning has to account for passengers sitting several meters higher off the ground than on any other airliner, with staircases that could bottleneck the people trying to get out. And every system adds its own weight in its own location. All of it balanced against everything else so the aircraft doesn't fly nose-heavy or tail-heavy. Most airlines don't even use that extra floor to add seats. They use it for wider seating and private suites, because 2 full decks were never really about passenger count. They were about flexibility. Adding a floor didn't just add space, it added a second version of almost every system the aircraft already had, fighting for position around one center of gravity, and it made the aircraft dramatically heavier. Weight on an aircraft this size is a problem that has to be lifted. Fact 2. A wing built to bend. That's the wing's job, and it was never going to be an ordinary one. Airbus needed a wing that could lift several hundred tons without making the aircraft too wide for a normal airport gate. Almost 80 meters of span, light enough to keep fuel burn reasonable, strong enough to survive turbulence loads far beyond anything a passenger will ever feel. Here's what that looked like in practice. Before the aircraft ever carried a passenger, Airbus built a wing on a ground rig and deliberately overloaded it toward 1.5 times the maximum force it should ever face in its life. The wingtip bent upward more than 7 meters before the structure gave way, just short of the target, confirming the engineers' models were accurate to within a few percent, and clearing the design to be certified. The wing also had to solve a second problem: big enough to lift the heaviest passenger aircraft ever built, small enough to fit the airport gate category Airbus wanted. Engineers even built in structural margin beyond what the aircraft required. For stretched future variants airlines never actually asked Airbus to build. That contradiction, huge but not too huge, solved the problem of getting the aircraft into the air. It did nothing to solve the problem of putting it back down. Fact 3. 22 wheels on the ground. A loaded A380 pushes an enormous amount of weight down through a very small number of contact points. Concentrate that into a normal set of wheels, and you don't get a landing gear problem. You get a runway problem. Because ordinary pavement was never built to take that kind of load in one place. Airbus's answer was to stop treating the landing gear as one structure and turn it into 4. A nose gear, 2 gears under the wings, and 2 more under the body. 22 wheels in total, spreading the aircraft's mass across enough pavement that no single point takes a hit it wasn't designed for. Those extra gears aren't just absorbing weight. An aircraft this long can't pivot around its nose wheel through a tight turn the way a smaller jet does. So the rearmost gear axles steer too, letting the aircraft turn without dragging its tires sideways and tearing them apart. More wheels were never about looking impressive on the tarmac. They were the only way to put that much weight down without destroying the ground underneath it. Solving the landing gear meant the aircraft could arrive. It didn't mean the airport was ready for it.
Fact 4. An airport rebuilt around one aircraft. Because a wingspan built for maximum lift is also one that doesn't fit through a normal taxiway. Look at any A380 capable airport, and you're looking at a gate that had to grow, clearances widened, pavement reinforced. Boarding had the same problem. A single jet bridge can't reach 2 full decks at once, so airports built double-level bridges, 2 bridges stacked on top of each other, loading both floors at the same time. On the ground, everything scales up with it. More catering carts, more baggage handlers, a crew working in parallel across an aircraft the length of a football pitch instead of moving down it in sequence. None of that was optional. An aircraft carrying this many people is only worth flying if it can be turned around fast, boarded, catered, cleaned, pushed back out on a schedule that still makes sense for the airline. The hardest part was never landing the A380. It was getting it back in the air on time. Airbus had solved the problem of holding the aircraft up and the problem of getting it through an airport. Now it had to solve the much stranger problem of building the aircraft in the first place. Fact 5. Parts too big for their own roads. Every major Airbus aircraft is built the same general way. Sections manufactured across different countries, then flown to France for final assembly on a modified cargo plane. The A380 broke that method completely. Its wings built in the UK, its fuselage sections built in France and Germany, its tail structures built in Spain, and none of those pieces could fit inside a normal cargo aircraft. So before Airbus could build the A380, it had to build a transport network capable of carrying pieces of an aircraft that were bigger than the infrastructure meant to carry them. Specialized ships moved the largest sections by water. Oversized road convoys took over from there, inching through towns, clearing power lines, widening roundabouts, turning ordinary streets into a temporary shipping lane for aircraft parts. Airbus wasn't simply transporting aircraft parts, it was moving an entire factory across 4 countries, one oversized component at a time, just to get all the pieces of one aircraft into the same room. Getting the pieces to the same city was one battle. Getting them to fit together once they arrived was a completely different one. Fact 6. Wiring that didn't fit. Inside the finished airframe are hundreds of kilometers of wiring, flight surfaces, sensors, cabin systems, fire detection, communications, more electrical pathways than any passenger aircraft had carried before. The A380 isn't just a mechanical structure, it's a distributed digital system wrapped in an airframe. That system is where the one twist in this story was hiding. The wiring was designed across 16 sites in 4 countries, split between 2 incompatible versions of the same design software. Cables modeled and routed correctly on paper by each team's own software simply didn't line up once both designs met on the real airframe. Nobody found the problem on a screen. Engineers found it with their hands, fitting finished harnesses onto the fuselage and discovering wires built exactly to specification were, in places, too short to reach their connectors, not on one aircraft, but across the entire line. Every harness had to be rerouted, rebuilt, and rethreaded, one aircraft at a time. Nobody delayed the world's largest passenger aircraft with a structural failure. They delayed it because 2 design teams were, quite literally, working from 2 different versions of the same aircraft. If something that small could throw off a machine this intricate, what happens when a much bigger system fails once the aircraft is actually flying? Fact 7. Never allowed to fail. An aircraft carrying this many people, built with this much complexity, cannot afford a single point of failure. So the A380 was built around redundancy at almost every level. Multiple independent hydraulic circuits, backup generators, flight computers that can take over from each other mid-flight. Take one example. If a hydraulic circuit loses pressure, it doesn't take down the flight controls it was powering. Those surfaces are also wired into at least one other fully independent circuit, which simply carries on without the pilots needing to intervene. The same logic runs through the electrical system. If one generator drops offline, another is already positioned to cover for it before the cabin lights so much as flicker. That's not about building a component that never breaks. It's about making sure that when something inevitably does, another system is already standing by. The idea that lets an aircraft this large be trusted with hundreds of lives at once. But redundancy only matters if, in the worst case, everyone on board can still get out in time. Fact 8. Evacuating 873 people. Every airliner has to prove it can evacuate everyone in 90 seconds, using only half the exits in the dark, with nobody told in advance which doors will open. For the A380, 2 full decks, 16 exits, an upper deck sitting higher off the ground than any airliner before it, nobody had attempted that test at this scale. In 2006, Airbus ran it for real in a hangar in Hamburg. 853 passengers and 20 crew, seated as on a fully booked flight, with only 8 of 16 exits active and nobody knowing which ones. The lights went out. Slides deployed from both decks at once, engineered to inflate in under 6 seconds, so nobody waited at a doorway 7 stories up. The entire aircraft was empty in 78 seconds, the answer to the question every system in this story had been building toward. Could this many people actually get out in time? Fact 9. An aircraft that worked exactly as designed. Everything up to this point was a problem engineers solved. This one, they couldn't. All that scale was supposed to be an advantage. Spread the fixed cost of a flight across more seats, and the price per passenger drops. On a route with more demand than any smaller aircraft could handle, that's exactly what happens. But the same 4 engines and fixed operating costs don't shrink just because fewer seats are filled. An A380 flying half empty doesn't get half as cheap to run. The aircraft was engineered around one trade-off, maximum capacity, in exchange for maximum efficiency only when that capacity is used. That isn't a flaw. It's the design working exactly as intended, on routes where it fits and struggling where it doesn't. That trade-off is part of why the story already has an ending, just not the one you'd expect. Fact 10. Production ended. Airbus eventually stopped building new ones, but stopping production isn't the same as stopping the engineering. The fleet already flying still gets maintained, inspected, and refurbished, and Airbus continues to supply parts and technical support for the aircraft still in service. Building the last A380 didn't end the story. It just changed which chapter the engineers are working on. Most people remember the A380 for one thing. It's the biggest passenger aircraft ever to carry the public. That's what the opening shot of this video showed you, a giant, parked next to an ordinary jet. But look at everything behind that image now. A wing built to bend 7 meters before it's allowed to fly. A landing gear engineered to spread hundreds of tons across pavement without breaking it. Airports rebuilt around one aircraft. A supply chain that reshaped roads and rivers to move its own parts. A wiring network so intricate that 2 versions of the same software could stall it for years. A machine built to keep flying when a system fails and to empty itself of nearly 900 people in under 90 seconds if it ever had to. None of that is visible in the opening shot. All of it is the reason that shot was possible. The Airbus A380 was never really a story about size. It's a story about everything that had to be reinvented. The airports, the logistics, the landing gear, the manufacturing, the digital engineering, so that size could actually work.